This video is for business leaders who want to grow their success by growing their grit and that of their team. Have you ever wondered whether being comfort-seeking, lazy, overeating, negative, and emotional was just you? And no, I'm not insulting you. I'm making an observation based on evolutionary biology here. So it isn't just you, it's our entire species. And all of these things are by evolutionary default. So watch to the end of this video to get all of the human hacking goodness and bonus material, plus my recommended video on how to grow your own grit and my downloadable Grow Grit guide just for watching all the way through the video. As far as grit goes, in particular, is something I would say I'm not proud of it in one sense, and I am in another, that I have way too much personal experience and knowledge about not giving up, probably more than anything else. As a product developer, you have to become like a salesman. You are a type of salesman. You are absolutely going to get a whole lot of no's. And in fact, you start to learn to strategically encourage no's if there's no interest, because it saves you a tremendous amount of time, because most people honestly don't have the balls to just outright say, no, I'm not interested. And if they did, everybody would be happier, not sadder. Honestly, it's hard not to be embarrassed about the idea of saying I'm an expert at not giving up, except researchers like Angela Duckworth and Carol Dweck have basically scientifically proven what the most successful people of all ages have practiced: grit and growth mindset. So I learned these from my real life, but then found the scientific verification through them. And this is why I love this picture. It's awesome, right? You get this tiny little delicate thing, and it has so much perseverance and grit and literally growth, not just growth mindset, that it can break through a piece of cement or concrete. And this happens all of the time. I think this is a remarkable example of something we consider delicate and weak being able to, with absolute determination, succeed. It's very interesting because both grit and growth mindset are more predictive of success than IQ. And I would suspect, though I don't have validation yet, that they're probably also more predictive of success than EQ, which is considered to be more successful or predictive in some cases. We've got to qualify this, that EQ is more predictive of success in some cases, where IQ probably is in other cases, depending on the industry, depending on the details of it. However, grit is kick ass, to put it in simple terms. The story of success, and most success stories you've ever heard, is the story of grit, whether you heard those details or not. Oftentimes, a lot of modern sales have a really fake short grit story at the beginning. Montage: I was broke, I lived on my couch, I had $67. Which is almost certainly bullshit, and they're trying to tap into that, but in an insincere way, which I think is not cool. Essentially, to summarize what I've just said, and this is what I've called Clone Week, which is CLONE: comfort-seeking, lazy, overeating, negative, and emotional. This whole week of videos that I've done, we are all clones. You don't have to like it. This isn't a value judgment. This is based on the scientific research, and you'll find out in a sec why I think that's the case, why science thinks it's the case. If you doubt that we all carry these traits, remember, by default, not by destiny. Watch young kids, then watch adults. Young kids, what do they want? They want sweet, tasty food, eating as much as they want. They want to sleep when they want and play what they want, and generally just do what they want that is comfortable, energy saving, unless they're running around a lot. If it's fun for them, they'll expend energy, but otherwise they probably don't want to do it. They don't want to clean their room, right? They love eating, and they love eating junk food. Why? Salt, sugar, fat works on everybody, but kids especially, because they have no grit or willpower or self-control, and so on. We can go down the list. Watch adults. Now, one of my favorite quotes of all time was by Brian White. He wisely said, "We never really grow up, we only learn how to act in public." And truer words were never said. He's an honest genius, because he's had the balls to say this, and Many of us have probably thought it, but not done anything to validate it. Now, before you get to E, emotional and defensive, consider how advantageous these clone behaviors I've described have been for our species until about the last century, when we became so wealthy and so abundant and so safe compared to any other time in history. The more our ancestors were comfort seeking, that is, warmth, shelter, safety, and sex, the more they sought those things, the more they had more little descendants, which of course meant the chance of their genes surviving was higher. The L, lazier they were, the longer they could survive to find their next meal. Remember, just because I am literally 1 minute away from 7-Eleven and 2 minutes away from McDonald's, most people could have went a lot longer than that between their meals. So saving energy for only what you need it for, that is being lazy, was a good evolutionary strategy for survival. And the more they overate as above, because the next meal might be days or weeks away. That is, every time they did find food, they didn't have a fridge, they didn't have a dehydrator, they had to eat as much food, they had to put it in their belly, the only place they could reliably carry it. So they ate as much as they possibly could because they didn't know when their next meal was coming. It was an evolutionary advantage. We love to eat food until we're far beyond what we actually need. And then the next one, the more N negative they were, the less likely they were to die from taking foolish risks or optimistically assuming that that snarling shadow was friendly. In the words of Roy Baumeister, death has to win only once. Life has to win every single day. So the downside of being optimistic in a much more dangerous, more scarce time, as most of our ancestors lived, just wasn't worth it. The risk was too high and you were far more likely to die. And the next one is E, emotionally responsive. So the more emotionally responsive our ancestors were, the faster they'd freeze, fight, or flee to survive, compared to their slower thinking, more thoughtful, but frequently dead friends. Thought is good. Being thoughtful and learning things and that is really good, especially now, but it's kind of useless to argue or reason with a hungry bear. You're better not to have a deep thought. You're better to run, fight, or freeze. So your odds of surviving went up radically by being emotional and emotionally responsive first and thinking later. And our emotions are faster than our reason, and that's why it was an advantage for all that time. Nowadays, though, being challenge-seeking, ambitious, eating in moderation, being optimistic in outlook, and thoughtful is the path to success that didn't really exist to our ancestors, which is why we have to fight against those evolutionary defaults. We can do it, but it takes effort. Otherwise, the defaults will always kick in because they're already there. Those patterns are quite literally in our genes. We have to learn to behave in public. Where is appropriate to change? Where is appropriate to do different sorts of behaviors, which would get us arrested in public, but in the right context are not only completely acceptable, but involve the procreation and continuation of our species. Totally different. Those rules are all learned, not inherited. And one of the best paths to doing all those things I said, the challenge-seeking, ambitious, and so on, is by growing your grit. Welcome to the bonus content. Thank you for watching this far. And this is about combat your default cloneliness by, 1, screw atomic habits. Seek challenges at the top edge of your ability. That is, seek challenge, not guaranteed success. Second one is attain ambition by being mindful of progress and self-compassionate about your stumbles and following your bliss. That is to be inspired by these challenges, which you have a real chance of failing at, but you're motivated or you're ambitious to do it because you love it. So that is, you need to note your progress, be self-compassionate about your stumbles, and follow your bliss. The next one is practice something in Japan called hachibume or harahachibu. Eat until you're 80% full. It's actually a Confucian principle that Daniel Buntner talks about in his famous TED Talk, How to Live to be 100 Plus. And he says it's probably the best diet strategy he's ever heard. Essentially what it is you eat until you're 80% full, not completely full. Then you either stop eating entirely, but if you are feeling overeating-ish, if you're feeling clone-ish, you want to eat more, hold off for 10 to 20 minutes and or have a calorie-free drink before you decide whether you need more food. And for a bonus strategy, the whole idea of deferring rather than denying, Baumeister shows in Willpower that, in fact, deferring is more powerful than denying. Denying makes us feel deprived, and then we cheat. If we say, no, if I'm still hungry in 20 minutes, I can eat that next piece of cake or that next cookie or that next whatever. I can have another sandwich. Don't deny it, delay it, and you may find, and it's worked for me now for years, that as long as I'm mindful enough to actually engage in that activity of saying, you know what, I really want to eat that, but I'm going to give myself 10 minutes. It's also used by addicts and is effective in at least some cases for them as well. So practice Hachibume, or 80% full, is a good way to remain more modest about your eating, to eat appropriately rather than overeating, which is our default. The next one is to practice gratitude, help others, and be especially mindful of positive events. So remember, it's overeating and negative. So we need to focus on the positive. And there's real advantages nowadays that there hasn't been in evolutionary history. Be optimistic. The next one of these is optimism. It's essentially a modern superpower of the happy and or super successful. That is, there's a lot of research about this, about gratitude, about optimism, about looking at the positive side of things. People who are optimistic and focus on happy things are more likely to be successful and more likely, and I think more importantly, to be happy. Successful and miserable sucks almost as much as unsuccessful and unhappy. The next one is, and this is a little neurological, it is absolutely not religious, but if you are, pray, meditate, or do any of a million other mindfulness methods. Mindful people are smarter, concentrate better, over the long term actually see specific changes in their brain, and over the short term see specific brain activities and neurotransmitter differences. They have better memories and are healthier and happier in almost every measure, scientific measure that is, compared to those who dwell in default mode. So that's it for the bonus material. And the recommended video is Grow Your Grit by Being Your Own Dopamine Dealer. I will put the link right there so that you can check that out and download my Grow Grit guide to level up your success even faster. And I'll put that link also in the description. This has been Crush It Club 268, Grow Grit to Combat Cloneliness. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.